Tell me, who can control the flood? No one. Where are the angels? Nowhere. Where's the honesty? Nowhere. Where's the compassion? Nowhere. Who knows the truth? No one.
Hey, look at me.
I'm just asking questions. I haven't. Excuse me, sir. I showed up here and you're the one that started hating me. So that's not.
You walked up to me and asked me my opinion, and I gave it to you.
Actually, I was trying to talk to her and you stepped in front of me. What am I? What am I?
You're really fucking tough, aren't you?
Okay, that was weird.
This guy's not going to be quiet.
Sort of superior race, you sure are pretty weak.
What are you talking about? What race is superior?
I believe that if you are from InfoWars, you think that your race is superior.
Oh, wow, that's totally inaccurate. Wow, that's racist, sir.
Get the fuck out of here.
You're being very provocative.
You're being provocative.
I'm being provocative. Okay, I'm being provocative. Just by being here. Just by being here, I'm provocative. I'm not welcome here. You guys are so tolerant. Look at this guy. None of them. Hey, look, I asked one of you to have an educated conversation with me. Just one. Just one. Because you're too stupid. Because you're not smart enough.
You all turn your back, let me beat his ass.
Can't do that.
What I'm wondering is what your staff is, so please let me know.
My staff is 1, 2, 3, and 2 guys over there.
You got a pole, a
That's
serf,
bullshit.
and a
There's
Jew.
more. Tell me more.
No, there is
Tell me
not.
everything.
Are you a detective? I thought you were Antifa. Aren't you guys
None of
against
your-
detectives and cops?
I'm just asking you.
Well, I'm just telling you.
So you got 2? Show me more.
I have 1, 2. If math is not your forte, I can point out the other 2 over there.
Please do. Please do. Indeed.
There's somewhere over there. They're standing. Who's us?
Somewhere over there. I would like you to show them to me, please. That would be great.
Why would I need to show them to
Because
you?
we're a community.
Are you a police officer?
We're a community, and
Community
we're...
of what?
Do you
Community of people who lives in their mom's basement?
Okay, so he said something that has absolutely nothing to do with policy. What do you don't like about his policy?
What policy?
Having a border?
He cannot read his.
He's written multiple books. Hold on, what do you think about the travel ban? What do you think about the travel ban?
I think they ought to ban you.
Obey our laws or don't take our money. And that seems like a pretty reasonable argument. If you're living in your parents' house and they say there's a curfew at 11, you come home at 12, you shouldn't be surprised when they say get your own apartment. I mean, that's kind of the argument here. It's not about law enforcement or safety. My question to you is, what's a good number? We've got about 11 million people at least living here illegally. How many do you think we should have?
Look, to your point about saying if you don't follow my rules, I'm going to take away your money. This is the first time I think that I can think of where conservatives around the country who have fought for state rights and who fought for federalism say all of that applies except when it comes to immigration.
Well, don't hang that. I'm not here to speak for conservatives. I'm asking you a simple question.
Look,
and the question is this: what's a good number? We have about 11 million, we think. We don't know, but we think it's about 11 million people here illegally. No other country has that many. No other country, as you well know. What's a good number for us? At what point should we say that's too many or not enough?
Here's what I will say. Obviously, sanctuary cities are not the ultimate fix for this broken immigration system. Congress, even though this Congress can't get it done, Republicans control every branch of government. They can't pass Trump care. But at the end of the day,
stop with the propaganda.
you're going to have to pass a law to fix this system.
Okay, but
so I'm not a policymaker. I'm not going to tell you.
No, you're not a policymaker. You're a policy advocate who is pushing for a certain set of positions based on your beliefs. And my question as an American citizen is, how many illegals in this country is too many? Have you given that any thought at all? Since you're pushing for more tolerance of illegals, like, what would be a good number for us? Should we have 22 million? Is 10 too many? Like, what's your view of that?
Look, this is a country built on immigrants. Immigration is the fabric of our nation.
Is the country built on illegal immigrants?
The country is the strongest country in the world because of immigration. And so, yes, instead of building walls, we should be building bridges. We should be fixing our immigration system.
I'm sorry. I'm getting frustrated because you guys always fall back on these bumper stickers. Do you ever engage with the ideas? Do you ever think, my job is to advocate for illegal aliens? How many should we have? Do you ever, work through what you actually believe, or do you always go back to we're a nation of immigrants and we should build bridges, not walls? I mean, I'm sincerely asking you that.
Look.
Stop. I'm into the...
You get to decide your gender. There's no biological anchor to sex anymore. It's all determined by the individual. So my obvious question for you is, how do I know if a person's male or female? Is there some other absolute standard that people have to meet to be male or female, other than what they say?
one's gender identity is enough to show what gender they are. And so if you're confused about that, I mean, I leave that, you know, to your level of enlightenment and
no, it's not about enlightenment. It's not about moral status. This is a real question because there are all kinds of institutions in American life that function on a sex-segregated basis. Women's college, sports, both professional and amateur, prisons. And so you're telling me that I can play on a women's sports team when I say I'm a woman.
What we are saying is that in this guidance with public schools, which and the vulnerable kids that are there, that there are specific guidelines that these teachers and these supervisors and these principals asked for and how to create safe.
Okay, but now you're going back to the first question. You just said a second ago that
that is what we're talking about.
No, let me take you back 3 sentences. When you said gender identity is determined by the person who possesses it. That's almost exactly what you said.
Correct.
And I'm saying there are massive implications of this that everyone is either too dumb or too embarrassed to explore, but let's do so now. If your sex is what you say it is, then what prevents me from playing on a women's field hockey team? What prevents me from getting convicted of a felony and demanding to go to a women's prison? And it's a real question.
It's not a real question.
Why is it not a real question?
It's not a real question because it is pretty absurd, and there are no other examples.
Because why?
Because there are no examples of this. What
do you mean?
I'm sorry, but there are no examples. This is the same argument about saying that this will allow sexual predators to go into women.
I'm not making that argument.
Yes, but you are making that argument.
Okay, what I'm saying is, I just want to know what the standards are. I'm not actually making any claims. I'm merely asking a question, and I want you to answer.
Yes, the standards are
Is there a scientific standard? Because when you deal with questions of biology, that is a species of science. So what's the scientific standard? I'm a scientist. I want to know if you're a man or a woman. How do I find out?
Look, these are discussions that I encourage you to have with someone who is transgender, and they can come and talk to you about.
I don't need that to speak to a I can speak to you because you think about this stuff for a living. So it's a very simple question.
Yes.
I want to know if you're a man or a woman. I'm a scientist. How do I find out?
Your gender identity determines your gender, period.
Okay.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
So should someone who looks like me, I look like a man, you think I was a man, I say I'm a woman, and I demand to play in a women's sports team, I demand to go to women's college, I demand a small business administration loan for women-owned businesses. That's a real thing. That's a billion-dollar question, for real. Can you turn me down if I say I'm a woman?
The question that is on the table right now is about Title IX.
Let's not
and about guidance. No, but you want to go off on
Title IX applies. It's not a tangent. Title IX applies and was created around the question of women's sports. So, as a apparent man, if I say I'm a woman, is that enough? Do I meet the standard as a woman to play in a women's sports team? That goes right to Title IX. Don't dodge the question.
I'm not dodging the question. This is something the Supreme Court is looking at next month. And yes, the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay.
Gender identity determines one's gender.
Let me ask you
period.
this.
And this is a matter of civil rights.
Is there science behind this? Because I know that I'm often getting
science.
Really, I want you to name a single scientist, just one, who says you can determine your own sex just by saying so. Can you name one scientist who says that?
I'd be happy to send you many after.
A scientist who said you can determine your own sex. An actual scientist, like someone who went to college.
Listen,
are you serious?
You clearly have some issues around this.
It's not an issue at all. I have questions that you can't answer. And you're instead throwing things like you're not enlightened. I'm asking you a sincere question. What's the science behind this? And you're deflecting. Why?
I'm simply not deflecting. This is a matter of settled science, and it is something that.
What's the science exactly? That you are what you say you are? Could I change my race too? And don't dodge that question. That's a real question.
And if I call you a moose, are you suddenly a moose? Okay, if I redefine our terms. No, yes, that's right. Men and women are a completely different thing. This is true. Have you ever met a man or a woman? They're completely different.
Completely different thing. You can't say you're a cat. It's not a thing. It's genders. It's not saying you're.
Okay, why is that? I don't understand. Why? Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are. Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably young and naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Because it.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
It's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender.
So we're going to just start here.
So you said that as a gay man, it was important to you to do it. You wanted to call attention to LGBT issues. I'm not aware that Trump is on a different side from you on any of those issues. What do you mean exactly?
No, there's been some potential legislation out there in reference to some federal executive orders he wants to place, and these past protests that have been transpiring since. Well, let me finish my thought. Okay. You know, these protests have started since January, and you know they've been the Women's March. We've had the Muslim ban march, which people are disagreeing with all of Trump's references to what he wants to do. And I think today was just another one of those positive causes where people are uniting together and they are making a statement against what Trump is trying to put into motion.
Right. I get that. The details kind of matter because, it's a protest. You're trying to influence the President of the United States, most powerful man in the world. So what specifically do you mean? What are you worried about, as you said, as a gay man? What is Trump going to do to you as a gay man?
Well, that was in reference to the upcoming June LA, LGBT march. But in reference to, today was the Not My President's Day march, and because many of us do agree. And if you're looking at all these protests that are happening, you see thousands and thousands. I look back at the inauguration day march, and they were expected to be 50 to 100,000 people in Los Angeles.
I want to be
750,000.
But I want to bring you back to the point that I asked about a couple of times. So Trump, I think, released a letter today saying that all the protections for gay workers in place, he's going to keep, late January, I guess, he's going to keep in place. So I often hear people say, I'm worried as a gay man about Trump, but what specifically does that mean? What are you worried about? What executive orders has he said he's going to put through that are going to hurt you as a gay man?
Mike Pence's thoughts are very well known in regards to the LGBT community, and there was an initial report where Trump...
Look, you threw this out there, so I think it's fair for me to press you.
Honestly, I feel like Trump isn't even the president either, and it's very well known in reference to, if you look at his cabinet, Trump's throwing a potential re-election. No, because he is on that platform to speak for said presidency.
Protesting Trump because you're afraid of what he's going to do, particularly, as you said, as a gay man. I asked you, what is he going to do to you as a gay man? Well, nothing really, but Mike Pence will, because Trump's not the real president.
My being gay is not the point of this. It was
in
reference to an upcoming protest. Yes, I did. I did. And if I was a woman, I'd mention how I was at, the women's protest.
But you're not a woman, so let's get back to the point that you made. What are you talking about? Because there are gay people watching and they're thinking, holy smokes, what's Trump going to do to me? What's Trump going to do to you as a gay man? I mean, that's an honest question. What's the answer?
It's well known that there was potential legislation out there. There was a leaked report.
But he doesn't pass legislation.
And it was covered by the media.
He's not the Congress. And he put a letter out disputing.
Executive order, Tucker.
But he said, I'm not going to...
Do you want to talk about the actual Not My President's Day protest, or are we just going to go off on a tangent on...
It's not a tangent, Shane. You brought it up.
I made an off-the-cuff remark about my being a gay man.
Okay.
And I feel like I've been talking more about that than the actual protest itself. So if we want to get back to talking about the protest, I'm more than happy to.
Look, I asked you why you were protesting. You said there are a bunch of reasons. Here's one of them. I said, I hear this a lot from people of goodwill who say, I'm gay and I'm worried about President Trump. And you brought it up. And so I said, in what way?
But I also mentioned the tax day protests, and we seem to kind of want to pigeonhole away from Trump's taxes, which have still not been released. Still not been released. And I also mentioned that as one of the upcoming protests, and you're completely deviating. You're picking on one specific thing that I said.
I'm making the mistake of taking
I'm glad
you
you find this funny, because I don't
particularly.
particularly.
Which I will never do again, I can promise you that.
Protect DACA. What exactly is DACA?
So, DACA...
What does it stand for, by the way? I see DACA all over the place. What does DACA stand for? Can you refresh my memory?
Is this a quiz?
No, I see DACA. I'm trying to remember. What does it stand for?
What do you think it stands for? Take a guess.
Something to do with the immigrants.
Yes.
Yeah, but exactly, do you know what it stands for? DACA?
Yeah, you tell me what it stands for.
I don't know.
Take a guess. What does it represent? What do you think it represents?
Immigrants, obviously, but specifically.
But what about them?
But it's just linguistically. Do you know what this acronym stands for?
It doesn't matter.
We've invited you here tonight to help Australians better understand what it is that you stand for. So tell me, first of all, do you support the murderous campaign being waged by Islamic State fighters in Iraq?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. There is an urgent need in this country to have quite open and honest conversation. I want to take a moment just to take a step back.
But I would like you to take this moment to my question, only because we'll have some time to go through a number of issues, and I don't want to run out of time.
We won't run out of time. We'll definitely address the most important and pertinent points. A century more of colonial occupation.
And I don't want to talk to you about the context at this point in time. I want you to address the very specific nature of my question, which is the tactics that this group is employing. Do you support them or not?
The fact that we don't want to have this discussion now is indicative of where the entire discussion around the war on terror narrative goes. The fact is, the entire response is what Muslims are doing or may not be doing.
What I'm asking you is the tactic that's being employed to push back. Do you support it?
Well, let me explain something very clearly.
Answer my question, please.
I'll explain to you why the question itself is quite disconcerting. Because what we're talking about is a particular reality where millions have lost their lives. Countries have been destroyed.
You are clearly obfuscating, and I did not invite you onto this program.
I reject the accusation. I'll say very clearly.
Why will you not point blank condemn the actions? Why will you not take the opportunity? You have a national platform here. Why don't you adopt the leadership that many have obviously given you responsibility for?
Why won't you allow me to answer the question that I deem appropriate? I've answered the question quite directly.
We are discussing here.
We're talking principles.
I am discussing with you the tactics of a group that is masquerading behind a religion which many people who follow that religion do not agree with and in fact condemn. People like community leaders here in Australia, like Dr. Jamal Rifi, who has publicly condemned the actions of Islamic State. Why won't you do the same?
My clear position is that we took a clear position on ISIS long before.
Are you outraged by the image of an Australian-born child of 7 years old holding up severed heads like trophies in Iraq or Syria?
Let me tell you what I am outraged by.
So you won't even answer that question.
Are you going to allow me to answer the question? Are you going to allow me to answer the question? If you wanted a one-way discussion,
no.
If you wanted a one-way discussion,
I think you're the one who wanted the one-way discussion.
You did not necessarily have to invite me.
I am asking you legitimate questions, which you have obviously come here. I just want a yes or no.
Let me make it very clear. You've invited me onto this platform to express my views.
Yes.
You're not allowed me to do that.
But you want to express your views quite separate to the questions that I'm putting to you.
I'm answering the question
let me
that
ask
I
you a
deem
different
appropriate.
question, and let's see if you might engage with that one. Your group is calling for a caliphate governed by Sharia law. What would that look like in Australia?
This is the absurdity of this entire discussion. Why is the focus, given the context of war on terror?
Will you take this opportunity now to urge young Muslim men here in Australia not to join Islamic State fighters in Iraq and
Syria? In the
Syria?
exact same way. The war on terror narrative works in this way. It presents the West as the good guy and Muslims as the bad guy, and we are what represents an existential threat to the entire world. That's an absurdity.
Will you answer just one question that I asked you?
I'm answering very clearly.
Specifically addressing the question I'm asking you.
Just because you don't like the answer doesn't mean I'm not answering the question.
But will you do me a favour and answer one question?
I'm doing the public a great favour by refocusing this discussion where it needs to be. The reality of what this government is doing in our lands. We live it. It's not an academic exercise.
No, you're living in Australia. You're an Australian resident.
It's not about point
You're an
scoring.
Australian citizen.
The Australian public
You're
needs
not
to
living
know.
anything
We need
in
to
Iraq.
have an honest conversation about what this government is doing in your name. And it is frightening. John Howard dismissed 500,000 lives as a mere embarrassment, and he did it in the people's name.
In your name.
In the people.
The fact he said he can't stop, he just kisses them and he can't stop kissing them. That's what he said.
I mean, he didn't say that he would forcibly carry on kissing a woman. He just said, I couldn't stop, as in I really wanted to. So wanting to do something and putting it in practice are different.
But I can't remember the quote exactly by heart, but it sounded very, very, very assaulty.
It sounded assaulting.
Let me just grab my stuff off the bus.
Do you support ISIS telling Christians, the Yazidis, in Mosul, northern Iraq, that they must convert to Islam, pay a tax, or die? What do you think of that?
This is simply false. It didn't happen. The fact is that the Muslims in the Islamic State, well, allow me to answer the question.
Happened.
The Muslims in the Islamic State, the Muslims in this,
they've been chased out of their homes. Children, obviously you need an education.
And then I'll answer the question when you finish.
Let me educate you, because obviously you're pretty ignorant. But we have video of children that have been beheaded, like this photojournalist, women and children with their heads placed on a stick after they've been beheaded, and we have one report after another of people who have been killed, chased out of their homes. They're in the Sinjar Mountains. The world is dropping food to support them and to protect them from radical friends of yours that you obviously support. And I'm just asking, do you support the concept of an Islamic caliphate of either convert or die? Do you support that? It's a simple question.
Okay.
Why don't you just tell the truth what you believe?
Can I answer the question without interruption, or you want to ask another question?
Come on, go ahead. Do you support convert or die?
What you're talking about is complete falsehood. First of all, the Yazidis, whoever went to the mountain even before the Islamic State came to their area. First of all, they said there were 40,000. Then they said there were 20,000. But then they went down. Eventually they said there were a couple of hundred, and they were living in the mountains anyway, in villages. So this was a complete pack of lies in order to demonize and vilify the Islamic State. And by the way, there's nothing called ISIS anymore. There's a Khalifa. Secondly, the Christians are actually queuing up to come back into Mosul because they realize that life under the Sharia is much better than the Nouri al-Maliki regime, which the Americans propped up and who was murdering and torturing the people in the region.
Okay,
remember,
let me ask you now.
Forgotten about Abu Ghraib, and we haven't
you're rewriting your own history.
Wait a second.
You're not being honest. You're wasting your time.
Let me educate you. Let me educate you now.
You're not honest.
The fact is that
show and I'll be a guest on your show.
What is the penalty for apostasy? That is the thing that you fail to discuss, and that's why you've got those prejudicial views about faith.
What is the penalty for apostasy? What do you teach the children will happen to them if they give up the Muslim faith?
Well, let's bring the debate back into Britain.
What is the penalty for apostasy?
I, in fact, have come to this country and chose to put the veil on. I have come to this country without a veil on.
So not so very wicked is the view. But what is the penalty for apostasy? What is the penalty for leaving the Muslim faith?
To be honest, I cannot back that point up.
Dr. Mukadam, what is the penalty for apostasy?
And, before...
We keep coming down this apostasy. Well, give us a quick answer on what is the penalty for apostasy.
You very well know, if it's an Islamic country, then the Sharia is very clear. Apostrophe is dealt with the death penalty.
Thank you. That's all I want to hear.
The dominant narrative in America is white people are evil, white people suck, we should be ashamed of ourselves, and
I don't think we should be ashamed of ourselves. I think that we should take responsibility for the system that we've created.
The best system in the world?
Oh, we do not have the best system in the world.
Who has a better system?
There are many European countries that are much better off than us.
You mean like the European countries with a higher density of whites, like Northern Europe?
That's one way to phrase it, I guess.
You don't mean Turkey.
No.
You don't mean Eastern Europe with the communists. So the only time you can come up with a system that's better than America, it's a country that's more white than America.
What the hell?
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up. Wrap that shit up, B.
been riding around the city with my squad. I've been riding around the city with my We just posted getting crazy, living like this is so amazing. Hold up, take a step back when we roll up.